Restaurant manager kicks out Barron Trump over MAGA hat. What he does next shocks everyone. If you're loving these stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stick around for more. It was a bright afternoon in Los Angeles when Liam Carter walked into the Terrace, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, the kind of place where celebrities and moguls rubbed elbows over 30 salads. Liam, tall and composed in his late teens, wasn't there to turn heads. She just wanted a quiet lunch. But it wasn't his presence that caught people's attention. It was the bright red hat perched on his head, boldly embroidered with the words, "Make America Great Again." Liam wasn't trying to make a statement or cause trouble. The hat was just part of who he was. He walked in with the confidence of someone who had nothing to prove, greeted the hostess with a polite smile, and was seated near the back of the restaurant. At first, everything seemed normal. Liam opened the menu, scanning for his favorite dish, unaware of the stares beginning to creep in from other tables. Whispers started soft at first, but growing louder. Behind the bar, the restaurant manager, Dean Miller, noticed the hat immediately. His jaw tightened. "Not here," he muttered to himself, striding across the floor with the determination of a man ready to make a point. He stopped at Liam's table, loud enough to draw the attention of nearby diners. "Excuse me," Dean said, his tone sharp. "We have a strict policy against political apparel. I'm going to have to ask you to remove the hat." Liam looked up, calm but surprised. "I wasn't aware of any policy like that," he said evenly. "I'm just here for lunch." Dean folded his arms, gesturing vaguely toward the entrance. "It's part of our code of conduct. This is a neutral space, and we don't allow anything that could disrupt the atmosphere." Liam considered his options for a moment, then gave a small nod. "If that's how you feel," he said quietly, standing up and collecting his things, "then I'll leave." The restaurant fell silent as Liam walked out, leaving his glass of water untouched. The door closed behind him with a soft thud, but the tension inside lingered, heavy and unspoken. No one knew it yet, but that quiet exit was only the beginning. As Liam Carter stepped out of the Terrace, the California sun felt a little harsher than before. Adjusting the red MAGA hat on his head, he let out a slow breath. He wasn't angry, didn't have the energy for that. What he felt most was disappointment. Liam had grown up believing in treating others with kindness, no matter their differences. Being asked to leave for wearing something that represented a part of him felt like a betrayal of that principle. He'd always thought respect was a two-way street. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, the whispers hadn't stopped. "Do you think that was smart?" a waiter asked the manager, Dean Miller, as he walked back to the bar. "We can't make exceptions," Dean snapped, his tone defensive. "Letting him stay sends the wrong message. This is my restaurant, and I'll run it how I see fit." Outside, Liam found a bench in a nearby park and sat down, his mind racing. He pulled out his phone and texted his mom, letting her know what had happened. Then he messaged a few close friends, not for sympathy, but for perspective. "That's insane," one replied almost immediately. "They shouldn't have treated you like that," another added. As the messages poured in, an idea began forming in Liam's mind, not a plan for revenge, but something far bigger. Instead of stewing in frustration or posting a public rant, he saw an opportunity to create something positive. "Hey," Liam said calmly into his phone during a call to a close friend. "I need your help with something. I have an idea." Liam didn't just want to respond to what had happened. He wanted to flip the narrative entirely. If the Terrace wanted neutrality, he'd show them what true unity could look like. The next morning, the buzz at the Terrace had barely died down. Dean Miller, the restaurant manager, felt confident about his decision to enforce the no political apparel rule. "I did what was best for the atmosphere," he told a staff member, brushing off concerns. But he didn't realize Liam Carter was already working on a plan to shift the narrative in a way no one expected. As the lunch rush began, Liam walked back into the restaurant, not with anger, but with purpose. He wasn't looking for confrontation. In fact, he looked just as calm as he had the day before. But this time, he wasn't here for a meal. Dean spotted him immediately, his jaw tightening. "You, again?" he muttered under his breath. Liam didn't flinch. Instead, he walked up to the hostess desk, But before she could say anything, he smiled and handed her a folded piece of paper. "Could you please give this to Mr. Miller?" he asked politely. Curious, the hostess nodded and hurried to Dean, who opened the note with a frown. His face paled as he read its contents. It wasn't a complaint or a legal threat. Instead, it was a formal request. Liam Carter wanted to host a community fundraiser right outside the restaurant. The theme? United we stand, building bridges, not walls. Dean blinked, stunned. The note was respectful, even kind, but the message was clear. Liam wasn't going to fight back with anger. He was going to make a statement the entire city would notice. Without waiting for a response, Liam left the restaurant, leaving the staff to buzz with questions about what would happen next. Word spread fast. Liam Carter was organizing something big. Outside the terrace, a team of volunteers began setting up for a community fundraiser, an event that wasn't about politics, but about connection and understanding. Dean Miller, the restaurant manager, watched uneasily from the window as tables, banners, and a small stage were brought in. The banner above the stage read in bold letters, "United we stand, building bridges, not walls." Inside the restaurant, tension was palpable. Staff whispered among themselves, customers glanced curiously at the activity outside, and Dean's usual confidence wavered. "What's he trying to prove?" Dean muttered to a waiter. "This is my restaurant. He's not going to make me look like the bad guy." But outside, Liam wasn't focused on Dean or the terrace. He was focused on creating something meaningful. The fundraiser wasn't about revenge, it was about turning a moment of division into an opportunity for unity. He reached out to local organizations, arranging booths for charities that focused on youth mentorship and dialogue-building programs. Food trucks parked along the street, live music was scheduled, and volunteers worked tirelessly to create an event that would draw the community together. As more people gathered to watch the setup, social media exploded. Posts flooded in. "Liam Carter is hosting a fundraiser right outside the restaurant that kicked him out. Turning conflict into connection, this is how you handle it." By midday, the terrace staff could feel the shift. Customers began asking about the event, some even canceling their reservations to join the growing crowd outside. Dean clenched his jaw, trying to ignore the buzz, but deep down, he couldn't shake the unease creeping in. Liam's message was spreading, and it was clear. This wasn't just a response, it was the start of something bigger. By the time the fundraiser was in full swing, the energy outside the terrace was impossible to ignore. Families, young professionals, and even social media influencers had gathered to witness what Liam Carter had created. At the heart of it all was Liam, calmly moving between booths, shaking hands, and thanking volunteers. But as the crowd swelled, it became clear they weren't just here for food trucks and music, they wanted to hear from him. When Liam stepped onto the small stage, the noise hushed almost instantly. He stood there for a moment, taking in the scene. A vibrant crowd in front of him, and the restaurant that had sparked it all looming in the background. He adjusted the microphone and began, his voice steady and sincere. "Yesterday, I walked into the terrace wearing a hat," he said. "I wasn't there to make a statement. I wasn't there to cause trouble. I just wanted lunch." The crowd listened intently, their focus unwavering. "But what struck me wasn't being asked to leave," Liam continued. "It was the bigger picture. We've become so quick to judge each other, to take sides, to shut down conversations. And that's not who we are. That's not who I want us to be." A ripple of applause broke out, but Liam wasn't finished. "This event isn't about me, and it's not about them," he said, gesturing subtly toward the restaurant. "It's about all of us. It's about finding ways to listen, to understand, and to come together even when we disagree." The crowd erupted in cheers, their energy electric. Liam stepped back for a moment, letting the applause wash over him, but then leaned back into the mic with a small smile. "And today, we're proving something important," he said. "Unity is stronger than division, always." As Liam stepped off the stage, the crowd's applause grew even louder. People weren't just clapping for his words, they were clapping for the hope he had inspired. While the crowd outside cheered and clapped for Liam Carter's speech, inside the terrace, the mood was entirely different. The usually lively restaurant was eerily quiet. Tables that were once fully booked sat empty, and the few diners who had shown up were distracted, glancing out the windows at the bustling fundraiser. Dean Miller, the manager, sat at the bar, scrolling through his phone with a growing sense of dread. Social media was ablaze with posts and hashtags like "Building bridges, not walls." Liam Carter's fundraiser is the event of the year. What a lesson in grace and unity. He frowned at the comments flooding the restaurant's own social media pages. Some users defended his decision to enforce the "no political apparel" rule, but the majority weren't so forgiving. "So much for neutrality," one comment read. "Kicking someone out for a hat is taking a side." Another user chimed in, "Imagine judging someone for a piece of clothing. Boycott this place." The staff could feel the tension too. One server approached Dean hesitantly. "Customers are asking about the event," she said quietly. "Some of them are saying we should go out there." Dean's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he retreated to his office, closing the door behind him. Sitting at his desk, he stared at his computer screen, which was flooded with emails, complaints, cancellations, even messages from longtime regulars expressing disappointment. One email hit harder than the others. It was from a loyal customer who had supported the restaurant for years. "I've always loved the terrace, but yesterday's incident was deeply disappointing. Neutrality shouldn't mean shutting people out. It should mean welcoming everyone. I hope you'll find a way to make this right." Dean leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. He wasn't sure anymore. Had he really been protecting the restaurant's atmosphere? Or had his decision been fueled by something else's something he didn't want to admit? Meanwhile, outside, the fundraiser was thriving. Music played, children laughed as they painted murals, and the donation boxes overflowed with contributions for local charities. Liam Carter was everywhere calm, approachable, and focused. He wasn't basking in attention. He was making real connections with the people around him. Inside the terrace, Dean couldn't help but wonder, had he made the wrong call? The fundraiser outside the terrace was the talk of the town. Families, activists, and even influencers gathered to support the event. Live music played, kids painted murals, and booths for local charities overflowed with donations. But inside the restaurant, Dean Miller couldn't focus. The sounds of laughter and applause from outside seeped through the walls, making the silence of the empty dining room even more unbearable. Finally, one of the servers approached him. "You should go out there," she said quietly. Dean stiffened. "This isn't my fight." "Maybe not," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "But it's definitely your chance." Dean sighed, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. After a long pause, he adjusted his tie, took a deep breath, and stepped outside. The crowd noticed him immediately, their chatter fading to murmurs as they watched the restaurant manager walk toward Liam Carter. Liam saw him too, and instead of retreating, he offered a small, polite smile. When Dean reached him, Liam extended his hand. "Good afternoon," he said warmly. Dean hesitated for a moment before shaking it. "I'd like to talk," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the crowd. Liam nodded and gestured toward a quieter spot near the edge of the event. The two walked together, the crowd parting respectfully to let them pass. When they stopped, Dean looked around, his eyes lingering on the bustling event, the smiling faces, the sense of camaraderie, the undeniable energy of something positive. "I need to start by saying I didn't handle yesterday well," Dean began, his voice low but sincere. "I thought I was doing what was best for my restaurant, but I realize now that I made a mistake. I judged you, and I acted out of fear, not fairness." Liam listened intently, his expression calm and encouraging. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong," he said after a moment. "Thank you for saying that." Dean exhaled, as if a weight had been lifted. "Watching what you've done here today is humbling. You could have turned this into a public attack, but instead, you created something positive. That's not something most people would do." Liam smiled faintly. "I don't think the world needs more division or anger. What happened yesterday could have added to the noise, but I wanted to show there's a better way. Dean nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. You did, and I'd like to support what you're doing. If there's any way for me or the terrace to contribute, I'm in. Liam considered the offer for a moment before responding. The best way to contribute is to reflect on how we treat people, he said. Policies are important, but they should never come at the expense of kindness. Maybe the terrace could host an event like this, something that brings people together instead of pushing them apart. Dean blinked, clearly caught off guard by the suggestion, but then a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. That's a great idea. Let's make it happen. They shook hands again, this time with genuine warmth. As the crowd realized what was happening, they erupted into applause, not just for Liam, but for the resolution unfolding before their eyes. As the sun set over Los Angeles, the fundraiser outside the terrace began winding down. The vibrant energy of the day lingered in the air, but now it was softer, more reflective. Families packed up their children's mural paintings. Volunteers tallied up donations, and the music faded into a calm hum. Liam Carter stood on the small stage one last time, his calm demeanor radiating gratitude as he addressed the remaining crowd. Today wasn't just about raising money, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. It was about proving something simple but powerful. Even when we disagree, we can still find common ground. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Liam raised a hand, signaling for quiet. We all make mistakes, he continued. What matters is how we choose to grow from them. This event wasn't about me or the terrace. It was about all of us showing that unity isn't just possible, it's necessary. As the applause swelled, Dean Miller stood by the edge of the crowd, watching intently. He had spent the day reflecting on his actions, and the event had shifted something deep within him. He wasn't just seeing a fundraiser, he was witnessing a movement sparked by kindness and understanding. As the crowd dispersed, Dean approached Liam, shaking his hand firmly. Thank you, Dean said, his voice low but sincere. You've reminded me of something I forgot along the way, that the heart of hospitality is respect and connection. Liam nodded, his smile warm. We all need reminders sometimes. What matters is what you do with it now. The two exchanged a few more words before Dean returned to his staff, energized with a new sense of purpose. That night, he sent out an announcement. The terrace would be hosting its own community event, inspired by Liam's vision of unity. In the days that followed, news of the fundraiser spread far and wide. Social media was flooded with posts praising Liam's grace and leadership. Hashtags like Building Bridges and United We Stand trended for days. Local news outlets covered the story, dubbing Liam Carter the teenager who turned conflict into connection. But for Liam, it wasn't about the attention. It was about the lives touched by the event, the children who laughed as they painted murals, the volunteers who worked tirelessly to bring the vision to life, and even the restaurant manager who found a path to redemption. Back at home, Liam sat at his desk, jotting notes into his leather-bound notebook. He wasn't done. The fundraiser was just the beginning. His message of unity, kindness, and open dialogue wasn't limited to one city or one incident. It was something he hoped to take further. As he closed the notebook, he glanced at the red hat resting on his desk. It wasn't just a symbol, it was a reminder that sometimes even the smallest things can spark the biggest change. The story didn't just leave a city talking, it left a legacy. Liam Carter proved that with calm determination and a willingness to rise above the noise, even the most divisive moments could be transformed into opportunities for connection, growth, and understanding. And the world would never forget the day a teenager in a red hat reminded everyone what unity really meant.